Hey, everybody. This is Ask the Sensei. I'm Tish Hicks. I'm the Master Sensei of the VO Dojo here in Burbank, California. This is our free monthly Q&A webinar. We have myself and our techno sensei, Dan Lenard. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, I am the home studio master, one of those guys that knows the alchemy of a home voiceover studio, which is not really alchemy, but since I've been doing it for 20 years, I'm the one that seems to know how to do all this stuff, in, out, that sort of thing. So if anybody has any questions about how to create good sound, I'm the guy to talk to, and that's why I work with Tish to help those of you trying to break into the voiceover business, how to do it at home.
Don't fool yourself, because those of us who have been doing this since the dawn of man also need people like Dan, probably even more, because we came up when we didn't even need to know anything. So we're like, help!
You were just talent.
help!
What do I push? What button?
So everybody needs to know the basics, but everyone should have a Dan. That's my philosophy.
That's what my wife said.
Today I am so absolutely thrilled to, I don't even know, to all the corners of my heart, to have my mentor, the person who I learned everything from, here joining us, Pat Fraley. He is one of the most amazing souls, amazing talent, and most brilliant teacher. At the dojo, every time I teach, I say, I am as good as a performer and I am as good as a teacher because I've learned from the best. So it's really a thrill to have Pat here. Pat, where do we begin to talk about you? What are you up to these days? What should we know about you?
I teach more than I perform these days.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing both for over 40 years, and it's been the perfect day job, either one or the other. When I didn't have time to teach, I was performing too much. I could bounce back and forth. There's nothing to say about me. My greatest skills are that I'm tall, I was reasonably good looking, and white. The rest,
very important for voiceover.
Apparently, for anything. And my job has been jumping in the deep end of a swimming pool, swimming to the shallow and getting in another pool. I don't have the stories of adversity that many people have had. God gave me a talent via my mom and my dad, and so I can't take much credit for what I've done in my success, or modicum of success.
Mm. Although that being said, whatever it is that you do, I think also one of your amazing superpowers is being able to really articulate what it is and find a way to show people how to find their own way,
That's true. That is probably based on a neurosis as a kid, but not only it wasn't good enough for me to be funny or be able to perform or act or commit to anything. I had to know why it worked. I don't know why, but those are two different skills, performing and teaching. Some people can't act themselves out of a bag, as you know, going to Northwestern, but they taught you so much. And vice versa. Meryl Streep said I'd have the worst acting school in the world. I'd say, well, you just do it.
Right. Yeah. And that finding the why, that's become the foundations of my teaching here too, is here's what it is. How do you think about it? And then why would we ask that question? Why would we do that?
Yeah,
so teaching you how to think about it.
Right. I don't think one can teach without deconstructing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the whole discipline, and Dan, you know about this, as far as even the tech side, and I say even as in addition to the tech side, you can't say, okay, we're going to teach you how to juggle. Here are 4 balls. It's not going to work. You got to give them 1, then 2, then maybe 3, but it takes patience.
Right. And then understanding the concepts, right? Here's a rhythm.
Take it slowly.
Yeah.
Be patient with yourself as your teachers you hopefully will have, patience.
Yeah. Yes. I'm so excited to have you here. So we're starting to get some questions. I know what I wanted to say. I always think of how I learned from you is almost an empirical approach. Like there's the art of voiceover, and then there's sort of a almost scientific way of inquiry.
Yes.
Like, how does it work? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, it gets down to this, and that is that if you're good, you can seek it out and find work. If you're excellent, they will seek you out, and you will. And it's the only reason we know how to pronounce the word Malkovich. Singularly unattractive guy, but he's so good.
Right.
And I noticed that I have a question from Jeff up in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And he's asked me, are you going to do that? You're going to say
what? Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you say what the question is, and I'll answer it.
Yeah. So Jeff is asking, has most of your work, Pat, been in LA? When it comes to doing character voices for animated work, is there much of that in New York?
Well, Jeff, I started in Seattle like you are, and I'm assuming you're there. But to get to your question, animation, the mecca of animation has always been LA. It's changing. People are doing animation in their basements. The way you start off is doing stuff free, because if you're in the union, you can't charge them. So even to this day, I'll go, look, I can't give you a budget, but I'll do it for free. Or I work, and there is some work in New York, but I don't know how much. And I would suggest, Jeff, you get hold of Joan Baker, and you'll find her on Facebook, or email me and I'll give you her email. She might know more about that. And her husband is Rudy Gaskins, and they know the New York market. I don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think like everything in the business, it's shifting someone. I think here is still where most of like here in Burbank, it's sort of like the heart center, right? There's Cartoon Network, there's Disney, there's like, it's all kind of right here. And I think that there's, the animation world is, it goes back to what Pat was saying about excellence, right? Things happen fast, and there's a lot at stake. And so when you get known as someone who delivers both in being professional and being able to show up and do talent, then you become part of the go-to sort of people, and then being available when needed to do stuff here is really important. I also think that there's so much happening everywhere that has opened up, in terms of like what people are doing on the web, and there's so many more ways that people are creating animation and content, and and what you can do for yourself. Heck, that there's a lot. I think, if your burning yearning thing is to be, the next Tom Kinney or the next Pat Fraley, or whatever, the person who's doing animation all the time, that's all you want to do. Yeah, get on a train eventually to LA. In the meantime, don't limit yourself. Go find what is there, right?
Yeah, well, when I started doing character voice work, it was in Australia. And that's where I learned it, and there was nothing there. And I was kind of a failure at Shakespeare. I was okay, but, I went to the studio and doing a little character voice job. And when I left, the producer said, "Oh, we like you." And I said, "Really? Why?" Because you're so big, we can't get the other actors to be that big. And I thought, well, there you go. See, I'm a big guy for baiting up 5 poles, putting them in the water, and if they're trout are running, you catch trout. If it's salmon, it's salmon.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have a deference. It just so happens they wanted me to do my character voices. And Jeff, I know you've been in New York and done a little work on the Cleveland show. I would just suggest you focus on making evocative, unique, developed characters. And that's pretty much it. There are basics that people that do animation need to have. There's 4. There's voice. It's good to manipulate your voice because they often call you to do things other than your own voice. There's pace. You have to work faster, which is a lie. Well, unless you live in New York, and of course they all speak too fast. Then there is acting. Every person that I've ever talked to with success in animation, it's acting. It's not a way of presenting a character and their funny emotions. It's how they interact with other people and how that is revealed. And that's and the final one is contrast. Being able to do a change up where you go, goodbye, Barbara. I hate her. There's no transition. So those 4 things are very important. 3 of them are lies. A funny voice, different than your own. A faster pace. Now I'm forgetting what I said.
You said acting and contrast.
Contrast, a lie. No one does that. No good actor has no emotional transition, and we have to dump it. And finally, acting. Acting's where we plant the little seed of truth. That's where we can, because you got to have a little one. Not a big one, but you got to have some.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Cool. Shoo. There it is. We have a tech question that Jennifer asked in the chat. So other questions in the Q&A, but here's Jennifer's. I hear a lot about finding the quietest place in the house, such as a closet. I'm already kind of tried hiding in my closet and talking to myself. How can I create high quality sound in a regular sized spare bedroom? That the eternal dilemma of we all are in our closets now.
Well, I think Dan might be able to field this. The first question I'd have, and I'll put this in with Dan. Then we'll get back to Holly. I think she's next up on the screen. But to whom am I speaking? I don't see
this
her.
is Jennifer.
Jennifer, are you talking about auditions at home or audiobooks? And Dan, you field it.
Yeah, well, and that's the question I would ask, and that's usually the first question I ask anybody. What's the primary type of work that you do? Are you doing audiobooks? Are you doing commercials? Are you doing a lot of e-learning work? And again, are you doing this primarily for auditions and then working to get into a bigger studio? Although I think increasingly you're going to find yourself more at home doing this out of your own studio. Such as I'm already kind of tired of hiding in my closet and talking to myself. How can I create a high quality sound in a regular size spare bedroom? It's when the larger the room, the more acoustic treatment you have to put into it. So the more expensive it gets. My cohort and co-host George Whittam on VoiceOver Body Shop likes working with big rooms, but these are big, professionally built rooms that are, isolated and specially treated, and they cost a lot to do. So to put it in your, in a spare bedroom, unless the cost is justified by how much money you're making, you don't put the cart before the horse here. You work with what you got. And what we like to tell people is you don't spend a lot of money to get work. You work to spend a lot of money, or you work to get work to get great equipment. So if you're in your closet and you want to get out of there, one of the things you can do is you can build yourself a, either an expensive booth or a very simple type of device that is easy to set up and take down. And there are several of those. You can build them yourself. There's several on the market. Or you could spend $6,000 or more for, an actual vocal booth, which, by the way, were not actually originally designed for doing voiceover. They're designed to keep sound from, so some saxophone player can practice and not bother a bunch of other people around him. So they really were not designed for recording per se, but we use them, and there are ways to acoustically treat them. But in a small bedroom, it's best to still find a place to isolate yourself, which is why a closet is usually a good place. If you've redesigned and repurposed that closet specifically for what it is you're doing, which is voiceover. So it's a matter of money and investment, and you've got to be able to justify that investment with what the return is going to be.
I'm gonna jump in here, Dan, following what you're saying. Some of the best sound I ever got in my life was with a towel over my head. Yeah, okay, but it was a little uncomfortable. I got a little plucky. I made a little money, so I went from there, stepped up. So it follows what Dan says. Mm-hmm. I want to hit something Holly asked me about. What piece of advice do you wish you got when you were starting out? Dan, you want to field that first?
What's the best advice?
No, best advice.
What do you wish you had gotten?
That I wish I had gotten?
Yeah.
I think it's the idea that, this is a business. We come into this as, I'm an artist. I'm an actor. In voiceover, this is a business, and you've got to look at it as a business. You're the one that's responsible for finding your work and for developing your skills, because no one else is going to do it for you. And you got to learn your own bookkeeping, your own marketing, all the technical stuff that goes along with it. And I think that I learned that early on in radio. This is not art. This is a business. You work for these guys, and you do what you're told. In voiceover, you work for you, and you get an agent when you are financially successful, and they come looking for you. So I think it's the idea that if you're going to be in voiceover, you're an entrepreneur, and you've got to look at it that way as much as you can, as being a voice talent.
And I think now more than ever, that's true.
I would say that when I started voiceover, I had no training because no one trained. Literally, it didn't exist.
My, how that's changed.
What?
My, how that's changed.
Yes, it has. But the advice I gave myself is the advice I would wish everyone to have. And it does fall in line with something Lisa Ware is asking about, is coming up on. She wants to do more voiceover. No. Greg Phelps asked me about developing characters. So let me go back. First of all, have fun. Advice. Mm-hmm. I wish I had had that advice, but I gave it to myself. Enjoy, don't be afraid. Fear is our greatest enemy. Forget everything else but having joy. Because success is two things, work and joy. Sometimes you don't get paid for the work, but you usually do. So where does money come in? You won't get money without work. But remember, it's joy and doing the work, because the money will go away. I did want to step up on this one, Greg.
Oh wait, I wanted to chime in on the advice too. I really wish that someone had told me as I was starting out in training as a performer, someone at Northwestern said, hey, when I go back to Northwestern and teach master classes now, I'm like, hey kids, love theater, like eating, try voiceover. That someone had said that as a performer, as a singer, as an actor, like it's crazy not to have this in your arsenal from the very beginning. Like, what a different journey. Like I was lucky to find it, fairly shortly after, but that's what I wish, like, that everyone who's at all a performer should have this in their pocket.
Totally. And when I was starting out, commercials weren't even appropriate. That was like lowball until Dustin Hoffman did a commercial and people went, well, I guess it's okay. But voiceover was like the stepchild. But I believe in having a big arsenal of work. And so I've done everything in my life. They just so happened to wanted me a lot more for character voices than documentary work, but I've done it. I've done everything. If I may, I want to jump on Greg Phelps.
Mhm.
Greg's, you talked about me having a real process for developing characters. What I really did was deconstructed what I saw other people do, or it became that way. But I gotta tell you, most people use their imaginations based on maybe meeting somebody and then exacerbating or exaggerating the person that is their model. I had a guy that owed me money. His name was Jim Terry, a producer. But he wasn't paying me. He was from the East Coast, but he was here a long time. he go, I know you owe your money, but I just had a crack in my pool. And so I decided to do him. I made a lot of money on that character voice. It's based, sure, funny, fast, all that, but it also has the truth of knowing the guy. And that was fun. And so that's how most people come up with their characters.
And
yeah.
I also think that, like anything, it's interesting. Right now, we just have someone who just finished You Should Do voiceover, who has been an Olympic skater and now coaches people around the world.
Wow.
So I think that it's really interesting when you think about, like, do you have a process or do you just do it on the fly? And I think it's really both, because there's the spark of inspiration and trusting your instinct.
Right.
And then there's knowing what technically you need to do a triple sock up, right? Like that there's a thing that you need to know that is a thing. And then you need to know that it's a specific, like, this foot goes here, this goes here, and this twirls around like that, how many times? And then how do you get your body to do that? So I think it's really a combination of, and then also learning from everybody, and you create your own process. You find what works for you. There's not like, and now I open up my animation book and
right.
Well, the process of learning it, but
I do want to focus on these questions that I see. They're very good questions, but following what you've said very quickly, people get hired for being different, for being unique. When we start off and when we are instructed, we are so aware of not having the skills needful, which is what you're referring to. You got to know how to twirl and jump and plant, land, right? Well, we have to get back to the fact that I'm unique. And if I don't show them I'm unique, I won't work. And we see movie and stuff, and we see people like Renee Zellweger when she started off, and she's like, we liked her. And she has Judy, and I still like her. Although she has a lot more skills, I guess. So it's like being yourself. And I wanted to address, if I may, Lisa Ware's question.
Yeah.
She wants to get into more audio or voiceover. She's very good. And I taught her through a audiobook major, which is 5 courses. And she's spooky good at that. But she said, any brilliant tips to meander into explainers / e-learning? And I would say the one thing I can tell you is that e-learning is so new, you can go to the companies to get e-learning material. You don't go to your agent. They won't help you. You don't go to a company. You go to the company, find out who the top 10 companies are you want to go to, and give us a simple demo of you teaching people. That's what they want, not narrating, teaching. She also asked, should characters be bigger than they would be in audiobooks? That's a style question. The lion's share of audiobooks are in realism. Or Jenny McSwain says, Dan, I love this. She says prime-timey. Right? But there's also sitcom / melodrama, which you see a lot in video games. There's over the top, which was like Hanna-Barbera wacky stuff. And then that's about it. It's real simple. It's a matter of, and if you don't hit the right style, you're in trouble these days. You got to hit the right style. They won't say, oh, we'll bring her down 10% and she'll be perfect. That's a concept that comes from theater. And most people aren't there.
I call it the tone of the tune. You gotta figure out what the tone of the tune is.
And your agent won't know. Sometimes you'll get, a Bible or a design of a character and the script, and they won't know. So you gotta, work it out like your salvation with fear and trembling.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have your style, you don't have it.
Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, I as someone who does an awful lot of e-learning and corporate work, it's a math. There's a number of ways you can get that, and Pat's number one, right? It's you like I said earlier, you've got to be your own salesperson on this as a business, and you've got to be able to contact these companies. And I think one of my favorite lines is when you meet somebody or you're on the phone with one of these companies, and being gender correct these days, you say, I used to say, who's the guy? But who's the person that does your training films? Who's in charge of your AV stuff? Who does that type of work for your company? And then see, and then get yourself into that person and then try to show them, as Pat said, how you're different. The other way is,
I'm going to put the dog out to pee. Keep talking.
Okay. I don't know how to follow that. But it's also a matter of, getting the experience, training yourself to do it. And there are a few people that teach how to do e-learning. I was fortunate because I came out of education. So to me, e-learning just came naturally. It was like, oh, I'm in front of the class and you teach the material. And it's also really important and easy to understand, to have cultural literacy, to really understand what's going on in the world and understand different technologies, or at least make it sound like you do understand what they mean.
Yeah.
And sound convincing at it. And but the other part of that is, which is very, very different, I think, from in the commercial voiceover world, and that's referral business. You create relationships with people who produce this type of material, and they will refer you to in other places. Or you can say, I've done work for this company, and this person will vouch for me that I can do this. And a lot of times, I will get calls and emails from people who say, you worked with so-and-so at so-and-so, and we were wondering, how much you would, charge to do this, and, we like your voice, that sort of thing, and work it from there. Again, it's a business.
Yeah. And I think...
I know you want to... I just am concerned about answering questions. I got them fast when you're ready.
Yeah, I'll just chime in. I'll just chime in with one more sort of bigger overall, because one of the things that that Lisa's talking about is how do we shift our approach as we're working on different genres. And I think it goes back to what, at the dojo we talk about what is the heart of this genre, what are we trying to do, and then how do you adjust. There's certain foundational things that go through everything. We talk about voiceover as communication. Communication is exchange of vibrational energy. So ultimately, it's just what's transacting on that level, whether you're doing an audiobook or an animation or a video game or a commercial. And then how do we calibrate this is the little adjustments. So figuring out what's the same and then what's different and what are you trying to accomplish. So in that tone of the tune, what's the heart of the genre too? Yeah. Cool. Jeff. Hey, Jeff Black.
Jefferson Black, who's local. Would you read his question? And I got a fast answer. I can go down.
Jeff says, how do you balance characterization versus articulation? For example, when Dawes Butler would garble, change words on purpose, like pricking the back, etc., but at the same time, the voice actor still needs to make sure all the words are understood.
Jefferson, the answer is I don't know. My 3 favorite words. You just do. If the director says I didn't understand you, then you understand you have an articulation problem. It's a balancing act. And so you just have to figure it. I know Danny Mann, wonderful character actor, always struggled with articulation versus some other actors who are over-articulate and didn't focus on character. Don't know. Margaret, you said, what's the best number of character clips and how long should they be on an animation reel? A reel is called a demo. Denver called it a reel. If you live in a area that has a lot of animation like LA, good. If not, it's a character demo. If you email me, I'll send you a lesson on what should be on it. It should be a minute, and I'll send it to you because it's kind of long. Anyone who wants information on how to do a character voice demo, I'll send it to you. You don't have to have me do it. It's a lesson about what should be there. Yeah. And Paul, how important is developing accents? This is a good question. Accents for characters versus simply changing pitch, tone, pace, or speech characteristics. The most important thing about a character is how they interact with other characters. Yes, it's important to have the 6 elements of a character voice, which you've mentioned some, but it's very important to be able to think like that character. It's good acting. And my career is many, Billy West and Jim Cummings, all these wonderful people, even though some weren't trained traditionally, as I was, it doesn't matter. Their acting got them hired, not the silly voice.
Mm-hmm. And I think accents can work both ways, because an accent comes from where somebody is, right? So if you are Scottish versus French, there's a certain who you are that's inherent in that, and then that's sort of the organic part, and how do you connect up to that? And then there's also the technical part, and there's something about an accent that is about noticing the nuances and the nuances.
Right.
That's a level. And then how would developing an accent bring the heart of the character out? Right. Like those are all questions
that is sophisticated, very good. But really, in any artful endeavor, we hear 2 terms: form and content. The form is the sound of a character voice for a voiceover person. The content is the thinking, personality, or behavior, and for us, acting. It's that simple. Mm-hmm. Rachel, she wants to work up. I'd like to work up to working in animation. How do you recommend to find a loop group to get yourself meeting, casting people, getting experience? You can't, Rachel. They're the hardest group to get into. The best thing is to be trained by someone who runs a loop group. And it's really not the way to go about animation. Most loop group work is about being normal and not standing out. So it's not a way of going to animation. It's a different thing. It's a way really to go to money and be normal, which is very hard for a lot of us. And finally, Martin, both, and I'm just looking. He asked me about how do I keep track of characters. Do you create a different MP3 file? No, I'll tell you why. I know what they think and feel, and it's not a matter of coming up with all the technical things one does. I come up with the way they feel, and they come out because I practiced them. Although during Huck Finn, I had a real problem because I had worked so fast. There's 93 characters in the audiobook Huck Finn, unabridged. And I remember looking at my notes, and on the margin, I read, George Bush, only a woman. I was thrown against the wall. Okay, and again, you want character voice demo information, email me at patfraleyteaches@aol.com. And really, if you go to patfraley.com, I got everything there in the context of my personal email and phone number. Email's best, and I'll send you info.
Excellent. Great. Well, we've answered all the questions. What other questions do you have? That's getting it done.
I know. I'm fear of not getting their questions in. I could go on.
Yeah, no, seriously. What other questions do we have? Or yeah.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's been on my heart, and please forgive me for taking more time than you, Dan, because it's so important. And of course, I've reached out to you personally to get help, and you've helped me a great deal on microphones and sounds and stuff. But I will take this moment because it's come up a lot, is that people think that creating a character is creating the sound of a character, when in fact, it's a visual medium. And when you go about getting auditioning, and you have a design sheet, which is a sheet that says what the character looks like and maybe a couple different attitudes. When you come up with a character voice, it helps facilitate the design, but it's not done. You won't get hired, and you won't be able to fulfill animation without the character. I remember how pleased I was to meet Mel Blanc and work with him, because I love Daffy Duck. You know, that high lateral left, woohoo! Love that. He started performing, and I was shocked at how vain and arrogant and self-assuming that duck was. It was the acting. I didn't realize it at the time, but and that's the little truth that Mel Blanc brought. You know, I won't go further, but the vain and self-absorbed and a little angry, and well, there it was. And I find in my life, that's how I was able to work and get jobs from others, was not the sound of a voice. It was good. It was pretty good. By the way, versatility means very little these days.
That's interesting.
You may be able to work a little bit more, but no, you'll get hired for one thing you do.
Interesting. And then the question is, how do you define what that is? How do you hunt in? Yeah.
How do you define what is?
What that one thing is.
Well, you get hired for it over and over again.
You get hired, though it defines itself. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I was a mall guard for the first decade of my career. Hey, you can't be in here. They always get knocked out. What the? Oh!
Right.
No. That was it. In fact, they teased me about being a mall guard in every single short. This voice, I had that, and I created a character, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah,
but I had other stuff because I needed, Renee wanted a swimming pool, so.
the truth of the characters. Yeah. Holly has another great question. Dan, why don't we have you field this first? How much should you invest in your studio as a beginner?
Not as much as you would as if you're a full-time voice actor. I think people tend to way overthink this entire process. That when you're just starting out as a beginner, chances are you're not going to be doing a lot of work from your home. And then we can go back to the closet there. And if you've got a good size walk-in closet that has a lot of clothes in it, I just saved you $6,000. It's a matter of what is going to work for you within your lifestyle. When I go into people's houses and I sniff around and see, okay, what's going on here? I will look over here and we'll look here and okay, this is the best space. Can you use this? No, this is my daughter's bedroom. Okay, let's find some other place. It really is a matter of finding a quiet space in your home where you can set up something small and temporary until you really start working. So you don't need to invest a lot up front. You do need a good microphone. You need a digital interface. You need to have a computer. If you don't have a computer, you're not in this business anyway. And Mac or PC, whatever. Simple software. Audacity is free. Learn how to record with that. Don't overthink that process until you are asked to think about that process. Because when you're auditioning, there's a certain sound you want to be able to put out. I think too many people tend to concentrate on what's going to make them sound great as opposed to making sure you don't sound bad.
Yes.
And I think that's where a lot of people make the mistake. They're like, I got to buy this interface. I got to buy this great mic. I was working with a guy the other day who bought himself a Neumann TLM 107. Everybody's going, oh, 107. It's an expensive microphone. And the more expensive the microphone, the more sensitive it is, and the more the environment in which you record becomes, into the picture. And this guy was like, you're hearing everything. You hear dogs barking. You'd hear toilets flushing and all those other things. So you don't want to invest in a heavy-duty, expensive microphone, because there is no piece of equipment out there, and I say this every month here, that's going to change the way you read and interpret copy. It just doesn't work that way. So you want to make sure that you've got something that is of good quality, a good microphone around $200, an interface that's going to cost you $150 tops, because the more expensive the gear you get, the more critical the environment in which you record is. And it's not going to change the way you perform copy. So keep it simple.
Well, I'll tell you what, when I started, and the sound was great, it was in a closet and I'd have to pull my clothes aside.
It works.
Yeah, and what you've taught me, and you gave me a test between a very expensive Neumann and a
it was the AT2020 USB.
AT2020 USB. Yeah, finish everything I say.
That's okay, in case you forget.
Yeah, exactly. So I agree 100% about not spending a lot of dough. And it's cheaper. Every month we go by, it gets cheaper to set up. And by the way, to let you know, when I audition or work at home, I use a USB mic, and I use Twisted Wave, which is you can own for $80. It would be Audacity, but I'm a Mac guy.
Yeah.
Now I wanted to get to a question.
Oh wait, hold on. I wanted to add to this beginning of the studio. I think you can also think of it like getting a first car. Do you need to get a Ferrari for your first car?
Yes.
No, because you may not know how to drive it, right? You can have it, but you don't know how to drive it, and you don't understand the nuances, and also, it's a great way to think about that. Do you need to get to the grocery store? Great. Right. Can the Corolla get you there? Yes. And obviously you don't necessarily want to get the Corolla, but do you need the Ferrari? And then how is your work going so that you can buy the Ferrari if you need it? You don't. Right. One thing that we do have coming up at the dojo, we did this in the fall, and we have another one coming up at the end of the month. We're going to be doing a tour of the Apogee studio in Santa Monica. So we'll keep you posted about that. It was a really, really fun day. Just going to their studio and seeing all their products and learning about how it works. And that's...
Well, what are some of their products? Apogee.
Oh, Apogee. What was the question?
What are some of their products?
Oh, they have a really cool new mic called the Hype mic. It's really tiny and has a lot of different adjustments that you can make to make it like really, really useful in terms of, like, I use it as my travel mic. So it's tiny and compact and really quite powerful. So that's a great place to start it with a USB sort of mic. Right. But I think that car metaphor is a good thing. It makes sense.
I love it. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Jefferson says how to keep your voice limber, especially when you have to do a character that may leave your throat raw. Okay, here's the deal. Forget throat lozenges. Yeah, drink a lot of water, but everyone tells you that. Don't do anything with volume. Don't be loud. Be quieter when you work. Jefferson, you do a lot of impressions. So make sure that when you take one on, you don't jump on volume. Volume will kill you. It's like putting a hurricane through your vocal folds. But if you're quiet and you've done a little humming, I always use Frankie Valli. If you can sing along with Frankie Valli, you're in good shape, a good warm-up. But that's it. Just be careful. Then also, Jim said, for someone entering the field without any training or background in voiceover, what's better? Starting with acting classes or voiceover coaching lessons, acting lessons. They're cheaper and they're good. And you're going to be able to apply acting, as Tish has, to voiceover. She didn't know anything about voiceover, right, Tish?
No, I mean, it was, I'd gotten a taste because the helicopter had come. So I had done all my training at Northwestern and as an opera singer and blah, 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 the Second City and stuff. And then a friend who was a creative director said, hey, you want to do these spots? I was like, yeah. And then I was like, that is what I'm going to do. Yeah. So I discovered it, but then I had to calibrate what I already knew to the medium. So
Okay,
that's
well, it's so true. It's no different. When people say, when did you decide that you would be a voiceover person? I said, I never did. It's just acting, and they're not paying to look at me. That's all. What's he moving around over there? They're just saying on the other side of the glass, we're not paying for the acting thing. I don't know why he's moving. Well, that's what we do. I also got a message from Earl Fisher saying, what was the email address again for that demo info? Earl, patfraley.com, PATFRALEY.com. Go to the contacts, my email's there. Let me know what you want. And just another thing that came up, said, when did you feel qualified to coach and teach? I don't feel qualified to do either, but put that aside. I never had a choice. I was teaching when I was a little kid and performing. I was playing Army and dying really well, and they wanted to shoot me. So after I die and fall out of a tree, they go, that was cool. I go, okay, here's what you do. You spit a little, arch your back, and say something German, like Ach von Himmel. So I was doing both from the get-go. And so it's a matter of stepping in, and I don't know how to answer your question any better than that, James. Know what you're talking about, and also I would finally say you should be in the learning business, not the teaching business. Meaning you're not going to get self-esteem you shouldn't be. And I've had teachers like this, and so have you, Tish, that are like aggrandizing themselves and getting the stroke being a teacher. Not a good place.
Yeah.
It's all about people learning from you.
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Dan? You've just stepped into you're coaching people on auditions now, and you've been guiding people on the technical side. How would you answer that?
Well, I think when in coaching and teaching and that sort of thing, I think what a lot of people who get into this start doing is they tend to try and create people in their own image, as opposed to finding out what makes somebody unique, as Pat was saying earlier, and really, finding what it is what technique do you use to find what makes somebody so special, and then bringing that out in them. And it's not a matter of direction; it's a matter of teaching people to get out of their own head. And I don't think that's a skill that a lot of people have. I think they think, well, because I was a voice actor, now I should teach because clearly I'm not getting enough work. It's not something you want to get into until you've had years and years of experience in the business. It's not something if you've done a couple of jobs that, well, I can teach people how to do this. Coaching is teaching, and teaching is something, I have a college degree in teaching. Patty's been teaching for years. It's not something you just take on. You've got to have certain strategies and certain processes and an understanding of what the learning process is before you can start jumping into coaching and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Tish.
Oh, I was going to say, and for me, for years and years, I was like, oh, no, I'm not a teacher. And then I had an opportunity to cross the threshold into teaching, and I realized that I had something to share that was going to help people, like affect people.
Yeah, you see that you're valuable.
Well, and like the heart of the dojo, like our purpose here is to align people with the power and possibility of their voice. So it's not just about voiceover; it's really getting you aligned with that and what that all means. And it's part of it's getting out of your head, part of it's trusting your voice, part of it's knowing how knowing the business, etc. But it all goes together holistically. But ultimately, how are you aligned with the power of your voice, and what can you do with that? So I think that's when I really stepped through. And then for me, the coaching and teaching has been a constant evolution. Every month, every year that I'm doing this, like, oh, whoa, here's another way that we can do this, or here's where, this is the vision, and now we're getting to how do people really do it. So it's been an evolution. But for me, it was kind of like a second calling, in the same way that the voiceover was like, okay, that, and then it was like, oh,
yeah,
okay, and now all these other, as a performer, all these different things that I did came together when I
that's
had a
usually
voiceover, and then as a teacher, all these performing things, and then the spiritual work with the medicine woman shaman that I do, and the dressage and the kickboxing, like all of these things came together that were disparate. So
right. Hey, there's a question here that Dan, do you see Jennifer June's question on your?
I do, of course.
Yeah, that and Jefferson's next question are really up your alley.
Yeah, well, yeah, and the first one is, let's see here, go down here. How much does it matter what's behind you when recording? Do I focus most of my sound treating on what is around or behind the microphone versus what is behind me? This is one of those not a one-size-fits-all question. It depends on where you are. What is the situation you're in? Are you in a closet? Are you in a booth? And the only way to tell is to record yourself and let somebody who knows what it's supposed to sound like listen to it. Because the big mistake a lot of people make is they're like, well, this sounds great to me. The biggest point here is that you don't hire you. And if you're doing this to satisfy your own ears, you're listening to the wrong person here. You've got to understand what it's supposed to sound like. And not everybody knows that. There's a certain sound that I look for that is, it's not that it sounds great, because what's great, it's that it doesn't sound bad. It sounds like you in the environment in which you exist. And that's the most important thing. So it's not like I'm going to say, well, you should have something behind you. Everything is individualized. I do house calls and I work with people and I look how they're set up. And we listen, and we're like, okay, you may need a baffle behind you, or you may not because you've got enough absorption in front of you. But every room is different. Every voice is different. So there's no one size fits all. And then Jefferson asks, can you recommend a few economically priced mics that sound like the Holy Grail mics? Well, the Holy Grail mics are incredibly expensive. And again, as I was saying earlier, you don't want an expensive mic. And the reason is one, it's not going to help you read copy any better. And two, there are so many mics around that price point of around $200. The AKG Perception Series, the AT 2035 and the 4040. If you go to a Neumann mic, it's because you know how to use it. And that's another point. You don't buy stuff because it sounds great. You buy stuff and use it because you know how to use it. Because if you get a really good mic and don't know how to use it and use bad mic technique, it's not going to help you.
Can you go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, can you type? I know for me, sometimes when people who are super in the know about tech stuff start rattling off like bada bada ba, can you type those in so we can catch up, and because it's great to know those things and to be able to go, oh, that's such and so.
I can type in my email. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Can I take a question here?
Mm-hmm.
I've got one from Tim.
Mm-hmm.
It says, how about improv and or comedy classes? Improv is good if it's easier than using words. If it's improv based in comedy, forget it. That's like a whole skill. I mean, improv should not be necessarily funny. It's about acting. And that's a good thing to take. Mm-hmm. Comedy classes, comedy is important. I don't know. I've never taken a comedy class, so I don't know how to answer that. But improv is less important than it was 10 years ago with regard to audiobooks, voiceover. In audiobooks, less in auditions than we used to, because the script or copy being sent by advertisers has been approved, and you can't change a dot or tittle. And certainly animation less, because comedy is maybe king, but there's writers involved and they want to hear what they had. And certainly sitcom, you don't change anything. They want to hear what they did. So it's less important.
Well, I think that it's maybe less important in terms of like, are you making stuff up? But
Yes.
I think it's super, super important in that the heart of improv is being present in the moment and being able to create something out of nothing, which is really all we do as voiceover people. There's nothing, and we create everything, the relationship, all of those things. So being open, one of the most important rules of voiceover that you teach at the dojo is play fully. So go
Right.
for it all the way and be able to just play. And so I think having the opportunity to work in that way is really important in this work, especially
Now,
if you think,
when
oh,
you
I should
say
take
work, are you talking about training or literally?
voiceover work on in your daily work, being able to go like, ooh, here's a word, I don't know, I could do this, and this. I'm going to play with it, right?
But
Just
maybe
having
not
that
in an
facility.
audition or in an audition, maybe.
In an audition, in a session, just having that freedom.
No, in an audition, not a session. If you're auditioning for a role.
A role like an animation role? What do you mean?
Well, like an advertising commercial. And
Yeah, just to being able to, it's not, you would be saying the words on the page, but being able to bring all sorts of aspects to yourself and play
because
around.
you work that way.
What's that?
Because you've worked that way with improv. You've worked out. And then when it gets down to, for example, audiobooks is a really good example because you can't change any words, but you really have to bring a little truth to everything. And so the process of improv is valuable there.
Yes. We work with, my friend Aretha Sills is Viola Spolin's granddaughter, and we do improv classes with
Paul Sills' daughter.
Paul Sills' daughter, yes. Yeah. So and her, it's Spolin. It's about the story, it's about the interaction, it's about being present in the moment and creating something. So that's, I think it's really important to be able to do that. Yeah. You know what, guys? It is 11 o'clock, so I'd like to wrap up. Dan and Pat, if you have a second, I want to wrap up and make sure everyone knows how to contact everybody and what's coming up next for all of us. And then if you have a couple of minutes afterwards, we'll shut down the video and the audio, and we can just type some answers if there's a couple of questions. If you have a couple more minutes, I think we're in pretty good shape. So, first of all, thank you all so much for being here, Pat and Dan especially, and then everyone who's here. We do this the first Wednesday of every month. Ask the Sensei, not with Pat every time, but someone equally as awesome. If you are interested in anything at the dojo, www, here I'll type it in, www.thevodojo.com. And we have a You Should Do Voiceover Intensive is coming up starting January 18th. Ronnie Butler is an amazing narrator and director, and he's going to be teaching some audiobook classes, an audiobook 2 if you've had 5 books or more, and we're going to be doing that's coming up in January as well, and audiobooks 1 virtually. What else is coming up? The Apogee Tour. I think those are the things, but stay close, stay in our loop. And Dan, what have you got coming up? How do people stay in touch with you?
Yeah, we're doing all sorts of stuff. If you want to get in touch with me, and I do house calls, and I do work with people all over the world using Zoom, like this, where we can visually communicate and auditorily communicate, so I can show you how to set up properly. All the time, there's VoiceOver Body Shop, which is on it's on YouTube. It's on our website, vobs.tv, and it's also on Facebook. So sign up and get on our mailing list. We talk with great people like Pat Fraley all the time, and my co-host George Whittam and I talk about voiceover technology and really how to make sure that your sound is, if it sounds good, it is good, is what we like to say.
And Pat, we've got patfraley.com.
Oh, it's Pat Fraley teaches at AOL.com.
At AOL.com. Okay, great.
The last guy that's with AOL.
Yeah, thank God.
They're all dying. Yeah.
Keeping it going. And Pat has so many resources online, guys. And when, this is what I tell everybody who works at the dojo, when you have the opportunity to work with Pat Fraley, do it. Absolutely. And I also forgot, especially since there's a lot of working pros here and people on the way to their journey, we also have the VO Dojo Pro Fight Clubs that we do twice a month. Top-notch talent together with brought together with the decision makers who hire us. I
love that.
Fiercely friendly face-off that turns the audition process transparent. So that's coming up. Chris Bailey. Do you know Chris, Pat? He's an animation director. I think he's working on Scooby-Doo right now. But Chris Bailey is coming up the 16th. So if you're interested in that, demo rep and booking is the thing. And then we also have our Working Pro weekly workout called the Nth Degree. At the dojo, we have the Mystery to Mastery class, which is divided into belt levels, full training program. And then the Working Pro is the Nth Degree, like your Nth Degree black belt. So that's starting up this month too. If you're looking for some accountability, some getting out of your closet, getting to the next thing that you need. So all sorts of things. Wherever you're at, give me a call. Oh, and also, if you're interested in talking more, you can get on my calendar or one of my team members' calendars with a voiceover. So that's the whole rundown. Thank you guys so much, Pat. It just always makes my heart sing to be with you.
Well, I'm only as good as the elbows I rub. And I'm with Dan and Tish Hicks.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you sometime soon. And have a great day.